Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From Thompson Bowling Arena and across the madness of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the march to March. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the T. It's time to go raw for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. We've got college basketball happening. Talk about something that felt like it snuck up on us. We've been talking about this preview forever, and we've been thinking about like the scrimmages and kind of the off the books type of things. And suddenly you got ranked matchups between powers. It seems like thrown on a random Tuesday, even though we've known about this for a while.
I'm still not used to NBA basketball starting like middle of October, and then college basketball usually was like second, close to the third week of November. Then you'd have feast week with all the awesome, and then it's like, okay, now I'm rolling into feast week. Like I've seen the 2 non-conference games, we're good to go. And now it's first week in November. You're like, oh my God, like have I watched enough that Nate Ament film? The Jacoby Gillespie, like he should have been involved the whole time, like all this stuff. So, but there's nothing better than when you have your significant other, she's like, I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to doom scroll on Instagram, or I'm going to play my video games, and it's Tuesday, and you're like, man, I don't know. I want to watch sports, but I don't know what I want to watch. And then you're like, oh, college basketball's back. And he's like, oh, we got Duke and Michigan State, or Tennessee and Arizona, or, you know, UCLA's playing Cincinnati, whatever it might be. So it's college basketball winter when you need something on Tuesday nights, kind of how I think of it. And it's here. And boy, Tennessee basketball is therapeutic. After we talked about the football, we recorded right after the football podcast. So this is nice to get to.
There are reasons to be excited. And I feel like more so than when I was growing up, we grew up around, we were experiencing college basketball in a very similar way growing up. And for me, growing up in North Carolina, that's very, I didn't pick a side here, but that's very UNC and Duke centric for me. That's the funnel I was experiencing it through, or the filter, I guess. But one, Tennessee is in those big boy conversations, and they've earned their spot in those big boy conversations. I don't care about blue bloods, whatever, but they're that quality of program right now. And two, whether it's the like college basketball has changed a lot. I feel like it was a messy product for a little while and has gotten better in recent years. I also feel like just the influx of freshmen and having to let them grow, but it's not all concentrated at Kentucky like it was for stretches.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when I was a kid, it was like you knew these programs were pretty darn good. There were a lot of returning players. The teams that were roughly top 10 in early in the season were going to be roughly top 10 around March. It doesn't feel that way to me anymore. And it feels like there's kind of a 1 to 20 range, and they could fall kind of anywhere in that range. Do you get that same feeling, or do you feel like the rankings are any kind of stronghold?
I think because of the transfer portal, even more so than football, it's hard to tell who's going to be good, really good, and great. It's completely changed how you kind of think of teams. Teams don't return 4 starters anymore. You know, I remember those back-to-back Florida national title team returned all 5 starters, which was an anomaly then. Don't get me wrong. But still, like you would have Tennessee like return, like, hey, Tennessee's bringing back 3-4 starters. And now it's the opposite. It's like if you're replacing 40 starters every year, and it just makes it a lot harder to know who's going to be good and who's not. And unlike football, where I think the top and the bottom have come closer together, in basketball, it's done the opposite. You have your top 20, which is all really good, and then your mid-majors are getting left behind, as evidenced by a very chalky NCAA tournament the last 2 years. So you kind of take all that in consideration. You still have the one and done era. Now you've got this weird NCAA allowing G League and European players that played pro for 3 years in, which we will get to about one for Tennessee. It's just kind of thrown things for a loop where it's like, I honestly don't know who's good until January.
Yeah,
It's like, it's kind of crazy.
we just ended or roughly ended the football conversation this week with like what were we wrong about heading into the season, and it was just a couple of different ways that we like misread the landscape and sometimes in funny ways. I would so much rather try to nail the rankings preseason for football than even
100%.
try to rank basketball teams. And that's not just because of like a different level of interest in the sport. It's just every single, like, as I see these games kicking off during this first week, every time I'm like, oh, that's an interesting guy. Like, he's moving around the offense a lot. I go and look at his profile and they don't, ESPN sometimes doesn't even have him on the correct roster when you go to their landing page.
Or they have the old picture of him from his previous team. It's, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. That Florida team was so impressive last year. I think I knew maybe two guys from the team. Like I knew Condon and I heard of Clayton, and that was about it. Like, it's in one of the Ed Martin from South Florida, or not South Florida, Florida, excuse me. That was it. Like you just don't, you don't really get the 4-year, like Lee Humphrey, wasn't he here in 2000 and now it's 2006? Why is he still around type of players anymore in college basketball? They move around, which makes Zakai and Jabai so, beloved in this new age of college basketball.
Yeah. Well, Rick Barnes, Hickory High School and Lenore Ryan University product near my stomping grounds, has found a path to, I mean, he's got a formula to some success. He also just happens to be a really darn good coach, which I think helps. Before we get into this year's roster, taking stock of the program, is it the best it's ever been in terms of excitement, but also sustained success?
I think you have to say it is. So when you think about where Tennessee was previous to that, was really close to the late 70s after the back-and-back tournaments with Ernie and Bernie. Unfortunately, Ray Mears had his mental health issues and left the program right after Ernie and Bernie, and then DeVoe took over. So you can't really say then. And then, of course, Bruce Pearl leads us to our first ever Elite Eight, top 10 recruiting class, Tobias, top 5 overall player coming in. And then, of course, unfortunately, the barbecue heard around the country happens, cookout, whatever you want to call it. I think it's fair to say that the University of Tennessee basketball program has never been in a better spot. Since COVID prematurely ended the 2019-2020 season, Tennessee's made the tournament every year. They've been a 5 seed at minimum every year. I remember growing up, and I'm sure you did, if Tennessee got a top 8 seed, that was considered a very successful season. Yes. Jerry Green was a guy, I think, got like a 4 seed his second year, and we weren't going to hang a statue for him because he's Jerry Green, but we were still impressed. They've won at least one game in the tourney the last 4 years. That's never been done at Tennessee. They finally won the SEC tournament title in 2023, which I thought would never happen in my lifetime. Just one of those weird things that we just never could do. They finally did. They won an outright regular season SEC title in 2024, which was very impressive. They won 109 games the last 4 years. That's over 27 wins per year, which I didn't run numbers. Cannot imagine 10 better programs with that. Refuse to think that that's the case. The last 4 years, Tennessee's had a terrible shooting half that killed their Final Four hopes. I think I will say the Sweet 16 team where Ziegler got hurt and tore his ACL, I thought they got as far as they could. It took Olivier Nkamhoua game miracle to beat Duke. So I think they went as far as they did. I thought the other 3 teams could easily make the Final Four, including the one they lost to Michigan with Chandler. They've had a top 40 draft pick the last 5 years. That is, like, for some schools, that doesn't make the news. For Tennessee, it does. 3 of those first-round picks. 7 players drafted since 2021. I remember when you couldn't even name 7 Tennessee players in the pros period.
Yeah.
I remember when Marcus Hayslip was like our only ball representative. Like, I remember those days. The changes made by Barnes after the 2021 debacle NCAA tournament loss against Oregon State, where he started embracing the 3-point line and more screen and dribble drive game, has raised the consistency of the program, and they've maintained their elite defensive capabilities. The only critique you can have is they haven't made a Final Four, which mostly has been bad shooting luck and maybe a lack of easy design buckets. I think that's fair. The fair, small little criticism. And the other thing is Barnes 71. Like, you just wish he was 61.
Yeah.
That's not anyone's fault. It's just kind of what you wish was the case. You kind of wish we got him in earlier. You wish Texas had maybe fired him. Excellent group of kids year in, year out. I think the program has done a fantastic job of embracing the transfer portal every year while incorporating these players into the fabric of the university. Dalton Knecht and Chaz Lanier were one-year players, and I thought or felt that we watched their entire college careers. Like, that's how well the program wove them into the history of Tennessee. I think Barnes deserves massive, massive amounts of credit for how well he's adjusted to college basketball in 2025. I've seen a lot of great coaches not be able to do it. Leonard Hamilton, God bless him, is a fantastic basketball coach, could not do it. Tony Bennett upright quit.
He just opted out.
It just was like a month before the season started, said, I cannot do this anymore. National title winning coach in his 50s. Jay Wright, two-time national title coach going into age, like his 60, going to age 60 or whatever, was like, I know where this is going. I don't want a part of it. The fact that Barnes did all of this in his late 60s, I cannot stress how incredible that is. Like, that is something that deserves to be commended forever. Just being able to adjust to the modern college basketball, because there's a lot of coaches that haven't and wouldn't. So
the conversations we've heard, like I specifically think about Knecht and his path to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
His framing of it as like, nobody was there to coddle me. Nobody was there to just chuck NIL money at me. The reason I came to Tennessee is Rick Barnes like openly challenged me to be a better basketball player. For him to land that while still being, by any and all accounts I've ever heard, one of the most heartfelt, great guys ever, who like is so individualistic with how he brings people in and embraces them. It seems like a pretty incredible thing to have happen. And he seems like he has the personality type that just as easily could have been like, this isn't for me anymore. But he found a way to have kind of like his heart lead this stuff. And he said, it's going to work or it's not, but this is how I'm going to do it. And he's found success with it. And it's pretty awesome to see.
Beloved by his players like Vitello, just in a different way. Grant, Admiral, Lamonte, Jordan Bowden, Jordan Bone have all complimented Barnes on Twitters or retweet stuff when he's been named, when he's hit a milestone or gotten an award. It needs to be said that is very difficult to do. Kentucky's had more success than us with Calipari. I'm not trying to compare, but go talk to those Kentucky fans and they'll tell you like they felt like a mercenary program at times. And Tennessee, even with embracing the transfer portal, does not feel like that. And that's really impressive that he's been able to do that. I should say, I know he's been popular to hate the last month, so I'm going to go a little hot takey. I think Danny White deserves credit for this as well. Barnes deserves the most, absolutely, but I think Danny's really helped put in a great support system.
Infrastructure, yeah.
Barnes and infrastructure, thank you. Barnes and White have a fantastic relationship. Rick has gone out of his way, and I don't think it was a mistake that Rick went out of his way to give Danny a little bit of a nice PR spin after Vitello left and some of the rumors that came out. So I think that's been very helpful. We know Barnes, the players love him. He represents the program beautifully. I have very little complaints other than just I wish he pushed the pace more. Like, that's about it, and it's just not going to happen. And the fact that he embraced the three-pointer, I should just shut up. It's like when your grandpa is no longer mean to your little brother. It's like, but he still doesn't like say he loves him. You're like, you know what? Let's just take this one at a time. It's all right. We'll go with that. But I think it's fair to say this is easily a top 15 program. And if you just didn't take it. Some people do this. I don't quite do it this way. If you just think the NCAA tournament is a luck of the draw, random chance, it's easily top 10 since the decade started. So I've been so impressed. And as somebody who has gotten a rap as a Rick Barnes hater, probably unfairly, I cannot think of a better, that was about as good as it gets. Like that soliloquy right there. So I have no complaints about the program other than just slight offensive adjustments that I understand every program has. Everybody complains about their team's offense, football, basketball, it doesn't matter. So it's Tennessee's basketball's in a wonderful place. Really, the only thing is like what's going to happen when Barnes retires, and we'll just cross that bridge when we get there.
It's interesting you say, as you were talking, I was like, it's funny because I actually think everyone thinks you hate Rick Barnes.
I don't.
Let me
I
say
don't.
this is one of those instances where like your just desire to understand the game and understand how we do things and really kind of push for more understanding has almost betrayed you a little bit, where like, and I'll give a parallel in a second that I think actually makes sense. You like to analyze this stuff. You like to think about how things could have gone differently. You like to think about like, hey, if we just turn this lever 15% more, would we be the same defensively and better offensively? Like that's just how your brain works with thinking about sports. But to give you credit, I think it's the same as like you analyzing whether the Lions could have used 12 personnel slightly more when Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator. Like that was that was not you ever saying, I have a massive problem with Ben Johnson's approach here. No, it was just you saying like, no, this is someone who actually seems like they would be interested in turning levers if things got a little bit better. And so what would it look like if they did? Now, stepping away from you a little bit, I do think, and we talked about this on the football pod, I do think Rick Barnes is a pretty good example of like, watch the games, enjoy the games, be frustrated with the results as they happen. Like Houston is going to run us in a couple weeks because we're still getting our feet wet. Like those things are all possible. But my gosh, people, you don't have to complicate just enjoying a thing being good.
I also want to say this about Rick, and this is a huge compliment to him. He changed.
Yes.
From since he got hired. He completely changed his recruiting profile. He changed his offense to focus more on ball movement when he first got to Tennessee. And then after the Oregon State loss in the NCAA tournament, he realized I have to embrace the 3-ball more, which he has done. That is significant progress for him and a credit to him that a man who started being a head coach in the 80s understood that he had to make these adjustments not only to his recruiting profile, but an offense he's run for 30 plus years is a huge testament to not having, you want to talk about ego among coaches. That takes zero ego, being able to say like, hey, my offense that I've won 600 plus games with at the time is not good enough in modern college basketball. So I do want to say that with my frustrations with Barnes the first few years, because he did embrace the 3-ball a lot more, and the stuff that he's drawn up for Connect and Lanier and the stuff he was able to do with Sakai, who I love Sakai, but was offensively challenged, is been highly impressive.
I mean, and I think this feels like half the battle in college basketball these days. Talent, of course, matters. Like it all matters, but just having dudes, like 9 dudes that'll play their complete heart out for you every game, we take it for granted. And he has that every single year. He has a group of dudes that are, I mean, the old saying is like, leave it all out on the floor. They want to do that every single game. And that shows up defensively. It shows up on the glass. It's not going to lead you to an undefeated season. That doesn't happen. But it shows up night to night, and it makes it really fun to watch, frankly.
In the last 2 years, I don't think he could have done anything. He ran into the ogre. They were not winning that game. God bless Golden Connect. He tried. But barring going 15 to 30 from 3, they weren't going to win that game. And they didn't, and they lost. Last year, they played the worst offensive basketball. You know what? Let me rephrase that. They didn't even play that bad offensively, from just how to run the offense. They just missed for 15 minutes and they just could not catch
Yeah.
up to Houston. And you can't do it. It's like going down 2 scores to Bama in 2011 in football. You're not coming back from it. That's kind of how Houston plays. So like the last couple of years, like I can't even, and again, the year before he loses his starting point guard mid-February, they beat a Duke team that was super talented and ran to a hot Florida Atlantic team that turned out to be really freaking good. So I can't even like look at the last 3 years and just be like, oh, Rick Barnes falling in the tournament again. Like I think that's unfair because I think the last 3 years it's just the NCAA tournament. I think some of the earlier ones you could, the Loyola Chicago, the Oregon State, maybe the Michigan one, where they went like 3 of 19 from 3, like I think are fair criticism. So I think the last 3 years it's basketball. Like it's one game,
Yeah, it's just how the friggin' tournament happens. I love the tournament, but
yeah, it's
putting
not
any weight on that is just silly.
Well, not in short spurts.
Yeah.
Trying to take a 3-year tournament run and saying like this proves an indicative of a problem. I mean, how many times do we hear about Tony Bennett, right?
Know.
And then he gets 3 of the luckiest plays in college basketball history, and they win the title in 2019. Now, I think there have been issues in the past with Barnes in the NCAA tournament, but he's changed since those times. And again, I'm watching the games. I didn't think he's doing something wrong. And I think you can tell. Against Oregon State, they were doing a lot wrong. Go watch that game. Doesn't even look like the same offense, right? So it's I can't complain. Like I really can't. Like I said, he slows it down in February, but he's always done that, and he's 71. So like I'm gonna pick my battles.
My like cutesy podcast host self really wants to go through like the returning players and what the roster looks like and how people are then going to fill in around that. But I think we have to start with Nate Ament. We will get to the other guys. Mm-hmm. The rest of the roster is legitimate. It is not a one-man show. There are things to be excited about. But we're 22 minutes in, and we haven't mentioned the best player on the team, probably.
And the highest ranked Tennessee basketball player maybe ever.
Yeah. And so this is like, we're starting the conversation here with the knowledge that this is actually probably only going to go up from here. And so this is your green light to gush about Nate Ament, but also talk about what he will be early on and then what you think he could be later in the year.
Right. So I needed the Duke game to reset. That was for me. I needed that, or else this would have been 30 minutes and you would have had to mute me at one point. He is incredibly skilled, a legitimate 6'10". They say 7'1" wingspan. It looks 7'3" when I watched the games. Like, I think it might be even more. Incredibly skilled, fluid athlete, has incredibly great touch. He hasn't quite shown it yet, but he's getting there. I think the staff's tweaking with his shot a little bit, which is completely understandable. Very good decision maker. We've seen some passes he's made that 6'10" freshmen normally don't. He rebounds. He already plays defense. You watch him and you're like, wow, I cannot believe this guy plays defense. The fact that Barnes is letting a 6'10" player play on the perimeter full time should tell you how impressive Barnes thinks he can be. And the fact that Barnes just heaps praise upon praise upon praise for his practice ability, what he does off the court, should also tell you something. Not quite the first step explosiveness I was hoping for, but still an incredibly talented freshman. Probably not fair to Kennedy Chandler, because God bless Kennedy Chandler. He was phenomenal his 1 year here. He was also a 5'11" point guard. He's the most talented freshman since Tobias. Now, there was some media members who got a little bit too crazy and tried to put some Durant comparisons on him because he's 6'10" with super long arms and he plays for Rick Barnes. He's not that.
It's a totally different thing.
God has also never invented anyone but Kevin Durant. So
yes, like there's a reason Bill Simmons calls them unicorns. Like,
yes, he's one of one. Exactly. So I think Ament's got a chance to be, I don't think he's going to be a number 1 pick just because he doesn't have the top end athleticism you want to see from that. However, he's definitely a top 5 type player. In Tennessee, you can name me the last top 5 drafted player. More power to you, Daniel. Do you know who it is?
I
Let's
actually
see.
do not have a clue.
Tom Borwinkle, Chicago Bulls. He's number
That was
3, I
going to
think, in
be
like the
was gonna
70
be my
draft.
second guess.
Also, how dumb were teams that Bernard King was not a top 5 pick?
So
But
that's what I was
anyways.
going to say. If it were Bernard King, he wouldn't be asking this because that's too obvious.
This is bad podcasting, but he came out as a junior, and there was still a
the stigma
negative
around that.
perception, stigma. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to suggest that he may have been a top 5 talent.
Yes.
The question I have about Ament, I have two. I'll go with the big one first. This is a question that's not a question, but I'm going to frame it as a question. Compare Ament to, I think, the freshman that's getting way more hype, and maybe reasonably, Cameron Boozer. The other down, like he's going to play down low, but it seems like he's got a flexible game. He just playing for a blue blood program. He's obviously a legacy for that program. And I'm not even trying to pitch this war against each other, but that is the guy who I've seen slated as this top pick. They're slightly different types of players, but see if you can kind of compare and contrast their impact on a season.
Boozer's more polished, and that makes sense because he's the son of a very, very excellent NBA player, and Carlos Boozer. He played in academies his entire life. Ament from Manassas, Virginia. That is not a very big area. It's not exactly a hoops. It's not Montevideo Academy, right? So, he's longer, he's taller than Boozer. I not quite there with the shot yet. I was actually shocked by how good Boozer's shooting ability was in that first game. It was so impressive. But Ament's got the super long arms. I think he's a better ball handler. I don't know about passer. Boozer also, Boozer blew me away. Like
that polish.
If Boozer had immense size and wingspan, you'd be talking about best American prospect since LeBron. That is what you would be talking about with Boozer. Ament has a ton of room for growth. Because if he becomes a knockdown shooter like Barnes thinks he can, with that size, with the decision-making he has, with the effort on defense, you're talking about a potentially elite two-way player in the NBA, which would be incredible for Tennessee for multiple reasons. And also, that'd be great for Nate, of course. I also am impressed with Nate's mid-range game. He missed some shots against Duke, but he got whatever he wanted against Duke. That really impressed me. I'm not worried about him missing shots because I know I've seen the high school film. I know he can hit them. I know Barnes is going to fix whatever needs to be done to get those to go in. What I've seen so far of his ability to get any shot he wants at any time. And he's already adapted. When Duke started throwing smaller guys at him, throwing double teams, you saw they tried the same thing against Mercer. He's quicker with his decision-making and also did a good job getting away from it to get one-on-one coverage. So I don't think he'll put up the raw numbers that Boozer will. Shire also will get the ball to Boozer 25 times if he needs to. That's not something Barnes has really ever done outside of Dalton Connect. But I think it meant absolutely top 5 NBA talent. And it wouldn't shock me if you're like, hey, he is the reason Tennessee made their first Final Four. I'm not predicting that, but that's the talent Ament has. And I think he's going to be a guy that clearly will get better. He's going to be better in February than he is now.
I think about Boozer, and just full transparency, we're doing this as Duke is playing Texas. Boozer's having an extremely rough shooting night. There are other people on Duke picking up the slack. And so that is to say, one, Boozer is filling the stat sheet in other ways. He's on the glass. He's getting steals. He's getting blocks. He's a complete player. And I think Nate can have some similar effects on the game. It's also the reminder for all of us that these dudes are part of a team, including how Shire is going to run things and how Barnes is going to run things. There's going to be a wonky night for, these star 100%. Freshmen. So thinking about Nate, my other question, and then this is going to lead us into the rest of the roster. Do you see him as a guy who's going to just eventually just get to wherever he wants to in the half court? Or does he also have the ability to affect the transition game and be like a guy out on the break with a two-handed dunk on a fast break? Is he that kind of guy on tape, or just how you picture us incorporating him?
I think he can do both. I think Barnes is already incorporating him pretty heavily into the half-court offense, as we've seen. They've called a a lot of baseline ISOs for him so he can get work there. They've run him off some screens. They've designed some 3-point shots for him. But he does have the ability in the open court with those long strides, with those long arms to be able to make big plays. So I think you're going to see that. I think he can lead a break. We saw that a couple of times against Mercer. I think he can make the right decisions. He had a couple really nice assists in the fast break. So I think eventually it's going to slowly be incorporated, especially because of how successful Jacoby has been. It's not going to surprise me if it's more Jacoby oriented the first month or so. But I think with how Barnes already in the first 2 games has designed the offense, I think you can see that he wants it to be a Ament show and Jacoby as that secondary scoring piece. And I'm hoping, I don't know how much we're going to see it because he's pretty committed to Ament at the 3, especially because he has 5 post players he's trying to figure out how to play. They've already played.
Too.
I mean, they had 5 guys all play at least 15 minutes that are post players. Like that's 4s and 5s. So it sounds like Ament's going to be strictly a wing, but there's a potential for Jacoby Ament some balls on ball screens that could be, whether you do 1-3 or 3-1, that could be really fun. That could really take advantage of some mismatches, especially because Ament's already got a really nice turnaround jumper that you could get him on switched on with a 6'2" guy, get him the ball, 1 dribble, pull up, boom. Nice, easy 15-footer for him.
Those guys have a chance to make it really hard for defenses to have the right answer. Yes. I want you to kind of wax poetic a little bit more about Gillespie and then about the rest of the newcomers. We'll get to the core of the roster afterwards. I think there's actually some really exciting stuff there, but the rest of the newcomers and kind of how you see them fitting, you can go kind of down the list, or if you highlight the guys that you know are going to play more, that totally works.
So I'll start with the transfers because there's 6 incoming newcomers that are not transfers. Berg's going to be a sophomore, so he's not a freshman. But anyway, so I'll start with transfer. So Jacoby Gillespie finally gets to be a volunteer from the Nashville area. Got to spend 2 years at Belmont, was successful. Wanted to come to Tennessee. They had Zakai. They had Gainey. I think it was a mutual decision by both. That was like, hey, don't know if this is going to quite work with playing time or whatnot. And then Kevin Willard left to go coach Villanova. So Gillespie got an opportunity. Gillespie was considered a top 10 transfer in the country. He was 15-5-3 last year, shot 40.5%, I think, on about 6 attempts per game from 3, and he can pull up anywhere. He's not Connect because he's only about 6'1". He's actually way more of a point guard than Connect or Lanier, obviously. He's going to do a little bit more isolation, a little bit more get a quick screen, take a 3, a little more transition than those guys did.
Test his range a little bit more off the secondary break, that kind of thing.
Correct. With Rick, you might see Rick pull a Jerry Tarkanian and bite into a towel a couple of times. And when we get to Ethan Burg, he's really going to do that. But yes, exactly. Gillespie's a good passer, excellent on-ball screen player. He's going to be wild, but Barnes is going to let him. I think that was one of the things Barnes was a little worried about. I think Barnes is going to let him create. He's going to hit some big buckets. He's a little streaky. We've already seen that. And I think he's a little nervous playing for his home state. He always wanted to be a ball. It just didn't work out, and it finally did. But I'm really excited about him. He's got a chance to put up some big-time numbers. A Kennedy Chandler-like impact there. The next one's Jalen Carey, a huge bruiser from Vanderbilt. Got 2 years remaining. He averaged 20 minutes per game last year. Started at James Madison as a freshman, went to Vanderbilt. Incredible rebounder. Already saw that last night against Mercer. I think he had 10 rebounds in 16 minutes, 5 offensive.
5 offensive, yep.
Just crazy. He's one of the best in the country. He's an old school bruising power forward that you just don't see anymore. 6'8", 255, thinking he could have been a left tackle in another life. He's really improved defensively. You're not going to be able to post him up. Good luck if you try. Also, another guy with wingspan. Something Tennessee's really done the last couple of years is focus on wingspan, as more analytics have shown wingspan really matters when it comes to defense. So Tennessee's really focused on that. He has some touch around the rim. He can face up from 15, has a Jerron Mayman type, 2 dribble, go up super strong, get an and 1 type to his game. Big issue, not a shooter. He's going to clog up the lane, and he's not really a center. So that'll be interesting. And then the last one is Amari Abram, who is very well traveled. Started at Georgia Tech, then went to Ole Miss, then went to Louisiana Tech. So he's got plenty of Power 4 experience. 36% shooter for his career on over, I think, close to 400 attempts. A little undersized, but he's a bulldog defensively. Has a nice bounces game. He's not going to do much shot creation. He's going to be a lot of catch and shoot. This is just a weird personal thing. Tennessee's brought in a transfer every single year that had a good 3-point shooting percentage, and they forget how to shoot. So I'm concerned that Abram's going to be that guy, starting with Victor Bailey and going back to Darwin Stowe-Dubar. So I am slightly concerned about that. But he's left-handed, and they really need him to hit threes. They need that guy in the corner on the top of the key that can hit some open threes, especially with Amen Gillespie getting as much attention as they're going to get.
Well, let me say this, like Gillespie and Abram, again, the jitters and kind of finding their spots in the offense and finding those moments to hit those big threes. But both of them are pretty darn good free throw shooters. And so there is some faith that it wasn't just volume, that they actually are good shooters.
Correct.
And so I hope they can find that stroke pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. Like, I don't know what it is. And like I said, it's just a personal thing. Like Barnes, like I'm thinking like Victor Bailey and Justin Powell and like Dubar. It's like, wow, 38% from three. That's great. And then they come to Tennessee, forget how to shoot. I don't know what that is. Barnes obviously knows how to coach shooting. I'm hoping that doesn't happen to April, but they don't need him 25 minutes taking 5. They just need him to help spread the floor. Like that's what they need. Just be enough. Like almost to the point, like a better Meshack offensively is kind of what they need, where Meshack started to get guarded a little bit more his senior year, drew a little bit more attention, but they need like a little bit more than that.
Do you want to talk about Burg?
Yeah. I don't know if Rick Barnes is going. I don't think Rick Barnes will ever kill someone, but Ethan Burg might be in contention. I'm actually, I can't believe Barnes recruited him, and I don't mean that negatively. That is not the type of guard Rick Barnes has ever recruited at Tennessee. We'll talk about Burg since he's not a transfer, but he's not a freshman. So very interesting story. Spent 2 years in the Israeli military and then played pro ball in Israel. He just turned 23. He's a sophomore. He has 3 years of eligibility. Played in Eurobasket 2025 for Israel and helped them get to the round of 16 for the first time. Like I said, Barnes might kill him, but he plays incredibly aggressive. He's not afraid to be flashy. He will pull up threes. He was going to he had some really nice passes against Mercer, and there are going to be some passes that you better watch out in the 7th row. You like, don't take a sip of your Coke. Like it could be coming your way. Like I said, Barnes might, I don't think Barnes would kill him, but like, it wouldn't shock me if I'm like, that might happen. He's going to get yanked. Like you're going to see it a few times. Like it's like Barnes is going to stare him down. Like I can't wait for that interaction.
He's going to be the number one, like a little sequence happens and he is not making eye contact.
Yes, exactly. Berg's going to immediately ask for the towel, like to wipe his face so he can avoid the eye contact. I think he's going to be pretty good. The being 23 with that life story and with Eurobasket, which is a very big deal over there, is going to be like, he's not going to be intimidated playing in the O at Florida. Like he's not. So he can knock it down a little bit. The shot's a little bit slower than I was hoping, but that I'm not too worried about that yet. So I think he's going to be the backup point guard. So I'm pretty excited about him. Like I think he's going to be fun. So
I was going to say, like, if there's one, again, it's not a complaint, but if there's one lever we want to turn, it is like, get us into madness mode. Like get us into like it is tournament play and we are running up and down the court and we are not losing our minds when we're doing that. And there's a chance that like Burg and Gillespie are decent fits for that. Like occasionally things just need to get crazy. And if you need the secondary break, but then Ament's coming down the lane and he dish it back to him and he gets that dunk in transition, those two guys can do that.
He has a chance where against like Houston, for example, where Tennessee could not get a bucket because of how he plays that frantic style. But he's usually controlled, where he can create some offense by himself, where Tennessee's not had that in the past. So despite Dalton and Chaz being so good, they were not on the ball creators. Burg and Gillespie are. that gives them something they haven't had the last couple of years. So with those two, that might be able to get them over the hump to play in April.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Chaz could get kind of, I don't mean from a rebounding perspective, but from a general offense perspective, he could get boxed out a little bit sometimes. Whereas
Right.
Berg is like, listen, I'm going to just barrel down on a fast break and it's going to be a block or a charge. But if it's a block, suddenly we've got 2 buckets at the free throw line and we're back on track a little bit. Not to say he's the same level of player as Chaz, but he's very experienced. And so I'm very excited to see that. What about the other newcomers and kind of leaning more towards the freshmen? Is there anyone that has you excited or really just people that are going to contribute right away?
I have claimed Dwayne Brown. So I already claimed him in the Duke Tennessee exhibition for Fall Nation. You vultures can stay away. Strong, ridiculously long wingspan, incredible touch around the rim, which for a guy his size at his age is awesome. Natural rebounding instincts. I think he had 5 the other night in about 15 minutes. He moves his feet well. I don't know quite, like, just the body length. He's taller. Reminded me of Draymond. That bowling ball with those condor arms. Like, that's kind of what he reminded me of when I looked at him. If he ends up like Draymond, the basketball player, I will be very happy. But he's got really good talent. He was about top 100 recruit. So I'm really excited about him. The fact he's already playing with this front court, like Barnes basically said, he played his way into this front court. We did not expect him to be playing, but he's earned it. Like, he's been the most, like, he's even gone out of his way to say he's been the most impressive freshman at times. So I'm really excited about him. I think if he stays, he's got a chance. Grant Williams is probably too high. That is a lot. That's a 2-time SEC player of the year. But that type of improvement where you're like, okay, I see the vision. And then by sophomore, junior year, you're talking one of the top players in the SEC. That's how good I think Dwayne Brown can be.
I can't think of a better set of mentors, and not that these are the only people taking them under their wings, but Okpara and Carey, like, I don't know if you could pick 2 guys better to say, like, come along, young fella, here's what you're going to be kind of banging up against and trying to improve against.
And then JP Estrella with his natural offensive ability too, as well. The next guy, Amari Evans, profiles a little bit like Meshack. He's a top 100 guy, really good athlete, go-getter on the defense side of the ball. I think he's a little more skilled offensively. I don't think he's going to play much this year. I'm hoping he's not the Freddie DeLeon type where he gets lost in the shuffle and he loses his confidence. He will eventually, if he stays at Tennessee, be a big-time contributor. Troy Henderson has gotten more playing time than I figured. I didn't expect much, but he's been really impressive. He's from Richmond, near my neck of the woods at the moment. A little bit on the smaller side, but fluid athlete, moves very well without the ball. I love the explosiveness on his jump shot. I think that's really impressive. I don't know where he's going to be as a passer or defender, but the fact he already got 12 minutes and he's given Tennessee a spark both times he's come in against Duke and Mercer, he's given them a nice spark. And then a couple more guys that we need to talk about here, or the next guy I should talk about, Clarence Masamba, who is a project. And as probably most of the people know here, the NCAA and Congress is making basketball go to 15 scholarships. You're going to see a little bit more of this, where Masamba is a guy that is going to need a little time. He's going to redshirt. He's a good athlete, but he's just got to get skilled. Played in the French Pro League, but he played at like lower levels. Barnes really likes his motor, but that's a guy they're just going to take a chance on, and we'll see what happens. I don't expect him to play much this year. So that's going over all the freshmen there. Like you talk about those 5 freshmen, and then Berg, that's a lot of newcomers. You don't see 5 freshman classes anymore with transfers. So if I like 4 of them. Like I said, Masamba, I don't really have a lot of hope for, but again, I don't have a problem with taking on a project like this and redshirting and seeing what happens.
Yeah, it's just a different profile than the other ones. The other, I don't know, it's interesting. We talked about this at the beginning. Maybe Tennessee's an example of it this year, and it's not to say they're guaranteed to be top 10 when this happens, but seems like a team that's going to be better in March. And,
yes,
a lot of teams are going to be better in March, but that's kind of all you can hope for, especially when there's promise early on and there's shot making early on, and you know that it's like you're gonna see how it comes along defensively, but then see who actually does provide that spark as we get into conference play. What are what's the core of the roster that these people are joining? Because we do have some people who are very important complementary and even core pieces to these guys.
All four, Tennessee only brought back 4 returnees. They're all going to play. Okpara is going to continue to be your modern rim running center. He's got to watch the foul trouble, and he does still float offensively, but he's a true deterrent on to the rim on defense. He's an excellent screen setter. He can switch if you need him to. He can rebound. Hit a 3 like that. Don't know if that's going to be a thing.
He also improved a ton at the line last year.
He did. That was nice to see. So he's going to be the starting center. He's got to watch the foul trouble. Now, Tennessee's in a better position, but they've got to watch the foul trouble. Cade Phillips is your old school, high energy defensive forward. He's like the Meshack of forwards, is how I would say it. He's going to switch out on screens. He's going to keep possessions alive. He's going to dunk the basketball with authority. He's not a playmaker. He's a play extender. I thought you would like that.
Like
so he's going to dive. His defensive, he probably doesn't get enough credit for what he does defensively because he does do a ton of switching. So he's going to definitely play. He's a kid you need because he doesn't care about starting.
Hold his own everywhere on the court.
Excuse me. Yeah, he doesn't care about starting, doesn't care about scoring. He just loves being Tennessee ball and running around and causing havoc. So you need guys like that. Bishop Boswell, I'll be honest, I'm shocked he's starting. I like the defense. I like the ball handling, but offensively, he always has seemed like a little half step slow on what to do. The shooting is very limited, not quite the size you want from like a main defender. Like people forget how big of a dude Meshack was, like 6'5", 210, built like a linebacker. Boswell's like 6'2". It's a credit to him. A lot of guys in his spot, high 4-star freshman would have transferred, but you need another guy you need. But I am surprised he's starting.
Let me say, and this is not to say the shot is going to be there, but every single thing I've ever heard about him, and this is from just like those in the know coaching high school sports in Charlotte, is that he is the exact type of kid who is gonna figure it out.
And he might. And
the combination of like there's some smoothness, there's fluidity, there's the want to on the defensive end. There is definitely not Meshack size, but some size at the guard position that I don't know. And this isn't sources with the program, but this is people who know Charlotte high schools who just put it in my ear a couple of times last year and just said, he's just a special kid. And the combination of that kind of thing and Rick Barnes just seems like something that, again, doesn't guarantee that he's going to be knocking down jumpers, but seems like he could be a great, great Tennessee ball.
You know what's going to guarantee you minutes? 8 rebounds in 17 minutes.
Exactly.
From the guard spot. That will get you play. The last guy, JP Estrella, really the X factor on this team. His offensive game from the post and his potential stretch big ability opens up everything. Even though Milicic did not have a great shooting year, you saw the benefits of his threat as a shooter open up so much for the offense. If Estrella can do that in 20 minutes a game, that's going to take their offense to another level, especially because they're committed to Ament on the wing. So he can also post up. We know about the great touch. We know about some of the shot blocking capability. Got to improve the strength for the rebounding and be stronger with the ball for the turnovers. But again, if you have that offensive weapon off the bench, kind of like what we talked about with Burg, that's going to really bring a new element to Tennessee's offense that they didn't have last year. And if Estrella doesn't get hurt, maybe we're having a different conversation about what last year ended in, potentially. But I'm glad he stayed. A credit to him. And even though he's not a starter, he really worked on his game, and you can tell.
Other than just like the randomness of March, what do you see as the Achilles heel of this team? Like, what is gonna? Yeah. I have one in mind, and I don't know that we'll be on the same landing spot there. I need to watch more, But what do you think of, like, what is worrying you about the team?
It's the shooting from the
Mm,
wing spot. So Tennessee is going to play Carey. They're going to play Brown. They're going to play Akpara, Phillips, and Estrella. Other than Estrella, none of them can shoot more than 12 feet, despite Okpara's 3 yesterday.
sure.
Um, sure, exactly. So you need really good backcourt shooting. I'm not worried about Gillespie. I think Ament will get there. Can they find one more? Can Abram be that guy? Can Burg be that guy? Does Boswell, like, I don't expect it, but could Boswell hit a couple, big key ones and boost the confidence? So the shooting from the backcourt / wing spot is what would keep me up at night. Like, you're just concerned. You go into March, you're feeling good, and you look up and you're 1 of 10 from 3 and you're down by 9 in the first half. And it's like, who's going to hit a 3 outside Gillespie? That's my biggest concern with this team.
I would say my biggest is, and this is going to be an interesting interplay, the guards that might fit the best overall with how we want to attack, the size of those guys. The size of those guys. And we have, like you said, we have enough length and size that it's not necessarily a concern that about people getting in the paint, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not even size in terms of height, weight, like physicality of our perimeter defenders, of really good guards in the SEC. And I know he's not necessarily there, but a guy like the guy who carried Florida last year to the promised land, you needed to be able to be physical with him and be up in his grill, and he was still maybe going to hit a killer shot. I wonder if we have that level of being able to annoy or cause problems for teams with really good guards on our schedule.
Other than Evans, they don't have a guard over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Like Gillespie's 175. Abram is, I think, it's 190. Burg might be 200. He's a little bit stockier than I thought he'd be. But Henderson's 180.
I mean, the biggest defensive presence there is Boswell, and he's not that big.
He's 6'3", 190, I think. So, yeah, I think that's a concern if they run to a 6'5" guard in March who can shoot over him, or even just a 6'2" guy who's very talented. Like, what does that? Can they defend that? And that's a good point to bring up. And then again, it's not like Burg, Boswell, Henderson have proven they're knockdown shooters. Like that 2 spot, there are minutes available. Like there are a ton of minutes available. And the fact that they've run out different combinations, I think Barnes isn't quite sure where he wants to go yet, which isn't a bad thing per se. You want to play it out, and the schedule's so soft to start the year. The first 5 games, they're going to get some answers.
Yeah, it's one that as we
try
see,
some stuff.
Yes, as we see things like rotate on that front, it's like that doesn't mean it's time to press the panic button. Like we are, there's going to be some more evenly split minutes rather than a guy like Connect or a guy like Lanier just clearly playing a ton of minutes from the jump. It's not going to be quite like that this year.
Correct. 100%. And the one thing I will say, Ament being on the wing full time does help with some of that because he's 6'10" with a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. And what I think they're going to have advantage in, they're going to win games just because of their rebounding, because they have 5 guys they can play 20 minutes that can just come in high energy. It's going to be a little bit like a hockey line shift at times. It's like, oh, hey, you just dealt with Jalen Carey and Felix Opara for 5 minutes. Here's Cade Phillips and Dwayne Brown for another 5. And by the way, I'm going to bring Estrella in and run 3 straight post-ups at your starting center with 2 fouls already. So they're going to win games just with that, and I like that strategy. And I think that can offset some of it. I wish Jalen Carey could shoot a 3. Like that's like, I really wish one of them, like Phillips or something like that, could develop a 3 with Estrella. It would make me feel better. But Barnes has had success with 2 non-shooters in the lineup his whole career. So I'm not overly panicking, but I just wish there was a little more shooting on the outside.
Yeah, we have, like you said, a relatively soft schedule to start out, but it ramps up. I mean, we've got some big matchups. Obviously, as you're going through the SEC, it's never going to be a cakewalk. And so we've got some, I mean, just those of you who are just now, like we were a tiny bit, like realizing basketball is happening, you look at how the schedule lays out, and there's some moments to mark the calendar. It is not a boring schedule. It is in
No.
fact a very exciting schedule. And so we'll have to find the rhythm of how we want to attack with our episodes, and then being able to like review but not read too much into, Tennessee versus Tennessee State. But I think we'll find the rhythm of that, and then thinking about around Thanksgiving time as the whole slate kicks off, that's we get a chance to get revenge against Houston, which I think could be a fun one. They're sitting at number 2 in the country right now.
Houston's going to have a great team. They brought in 3 top 25 freshmen, brought in a couple really nice transfers. Sampson's going to have that team ready. It's going to be really fun.
I absolutely love playing against them with those 2 coaches as well. Like genuinely, it's to be cherished, those 2 guys leading teams against each other. I'll go ahead and say the thing I was wrong about for the college basketball season. I talked about Cameron Boozer having a tough shooting night. He only finished with 15 and 13 in a victory over Texas. And so we're off to a booming start there. Props to him. It's almost like he's pretty darn good at basketball.
He is very good.
He's going to be fun to watch this year. Fun in a way, I guess I'll say.
Much fun as you can have with a Duke player.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Vol specifically, or the landscape of college basketball?
Not anything specific. I think Barnes, this might be his best chance to get to a Final Four.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah, and there's still some scary stuff on the schedule. Like, again, the rankings are going to flop around, but there's parts of Florida, parts of Houston, parts of Purdue that are still like, but bring it on. Let's go.
I don't have any major predictions because it's a little bit different than football. I think this will be a top 3 seed. I will say that.
That's awesome. I love that. And if we get there, we'll earn it. It's a tough slate, and it's going to be a fun slate. And then I think right after New Year's, we go down to Fayetteville as well, which will be interesting.
It will be fun. So speaking of state of the programs, Tennessee baseball.
I didn't think when we were talking about Vitello leaving, and this is not to say that it's going to be seamless, I thought that I would feel worse now. I thought that I would feel a lot worse than I do. I thought things were going to get a little bit just more frustrating than they have. The combination of, we were excited about Elander. That was kind of one of those where I was like, don't outsmart yourself here. Mm-hmm. Every single player that's come through the program, every single player that is going to be the branding of college baseball now is like suggesting that people go to the program you went to. Everyone was leaning towards that. And this was not some like interim coach that took over from a horrible coach that just had the energy for a second. No, this was someone who clearly was core to the program. And
who also turned down multiple good jobs because of how much he loved Knoxville and Tennessee.
Yeah. And so it's like, who's young and like clearly connects with players in a way that's important in college baseball right now. Frankly, still brings some of the fire that has been critical to this program's growth. That, and you tack on I sit here and say I don't read too much into press conferences, but when you quote Pat Head Summit in a press conference, I actually start to read into it. It was great. I love that. And so it's like that fire is real, and it's from his belly. And so I love seeing that. And then, there's been a move even since then that I thought was diabolical and made me even more excited.
Incredible. The steal Florida's interim coach, which I don't want to be rude. I still don't know what's going on with Sullivan, but incredible they were able to do that. I don't think Danny could have made another move. And apparently he interviewed Kevin Schnall, and I think there's a law in the state of Tennessee where you have to interview at least 2 candidates for a public spot. So I think that was part of it. And maybe Danny was just doing some due diligence. It would not have made sense to me to hire Schnall. Not that he did a bad job or anything. He did a great job. But literally the same situation, take over a great program, from a legend. And yeah, he had the one great year, but like never built it. I think that was a transition that happened after all the recruiting and stuff as well. Coastal Carolina is not the SEC either. Like that's that's something else too. And Elander deserved it. You got to reward people within your employment, right? And that was a guy who turned down multiple good jobs to stay with Vitello in Tennessee. Clearly, the players wanted it, and there's no losing this for Danny. If Elander isn't the guy, then no one's going to blame him.
It also went from, and this is not to excuse, I think maybe it was much ado about nothing with Vitello leaving, but that's just my opinion. It went from, oh my gosh, how is he going to respond, to like, sometimes people leave and go take other jobs.
Yeah.
And like, it
right.
turns out that a lot of the core, like, there was this fear that like, oh, Frank's going with him, maybe Elander's going with him, maybe we're in the weeds and we are like hoping a guy from Coastal is going to come, to like, no, clearly there was some infrastructure here to keep some good things rolling as good things. It does not mean you're replacing Vitello and his energy, but it is a little bit more like, let's see how he does and let's see how we can keep this rolling, than it is like desperately hoping you can recapture the energy from somewhere else. And so yeah, I think it's sitting in a slightly different spot than it was right as everything felt so crazy.
Well, and you keep your recruiting base, which has been phenomenal under Tennessee the last couple of years. Vitello has brought in incredible amounts of talent. You also keep your current players happy who didn't have an option. I think that's something you have to consider. Like, these guys can't leave. It's October. It's not quite fair to them. And I'm not blaming Tony. We talked about, we understood the situation. It's kind of unfair for these transfers and freshmen that came in, and then you bring in a completely different guy, and maybe a couple of them were like, I didn't want to play for Kevin Schnell. I don't know that. I'm just saying, that could be the case. So it made complete sense. Elander has the fire, the energy. The fan base got a little too crazy. They lost the plot a little bit. What the main reason why Vitello was leaving was, and it was to take a premier MLB job. But again, I think it's going to work. I think Elander has the right attitude, the right demeanor. And again, if it doesn't, then the program's in a much better space, even if Elander falters, and they can go hire a big time guy. And Danny's is a guy who will take criticism and he will use it as fuel. So if it doesn't work and every Vitello is succeeding in Major League Baseball, if people are going, oh, see, it was all Tony. You should have kept Tony. You should have paid Tony $25 million a year that you didn't have to keep him. Then Danny's going to be like, well, I'll go get the right baseball coach. So they had to do it. I have no problem with it. And I'm still excited about Tennessee baseball. Yeah, I'm not going to watch the February games, but like when we get to SEC play, I'm going to be there watching on the weekends.
If for some reason this doesn't go as smoothly as we think it could, the next swing from Danny is not going to be a light one.
It will not. Exactly.
No, and then again, like, not for nothing in terms of throwing our weight around, to go and take a guy like Chuck from Florida, as they are hoping things work out, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy than their head coach. Like, that is the type of stuff that's like, oh, they're going to be mad when we play. That's the type of stuff that like, it's like, this is why there's going to be a fight when we play them. And it's going to be well earned from both sides. If their coach is around, we'll see what he's up to. You might need to, I'm not going to finish that joke. But yeah, it's got me excited. It's got me really excited. Plenty of time before baseball, plenty of stuff to touch on before baseball, but it feels good to kind of still feel like we're at fighting weight heading into the season.
Yes, it does. And they can still make the College World Series. This team's going to be uber talented. I don't know if we're going to do a baseball preview, but if we do, like, you're going to see her big time prospect, big time transfer. So I'm very excited about the baseball team, and overall Tennessee Athletics is still in good hands.
Yeah. I'm excited for basketball. I'm excited for it to get rolling. And then, we're heading into the latter part of the football schedule. And if there is any change or update or change to the pattern of how we're going to tackle these, we'll keep people in the loop. We'll keep people posted, and we'll update as needed, especially as some of these big games on the schedule start to pop up.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do much in November, with how the light schedule is the first and then it really ramps up. We fortunately are not going to have a playoff pod. So that will probably become a basketball pod. But I would say one last thing, but we need to wrap it up. And appreciate Rick Barnes the next couple of years. Because he's 71. And that's the type of guy that might wake up in June and say, I've made my peace. I'm good.
Yeah.
He's that type of person. That's not a bad thing. So, appreciate what this team and this program has become. And I would say really enjoy this year. I think you don't get a Nate. We're not Duke. We're not Kentucky. We're not Kansas. Like, you appreciate, I think, what Nate Ament's going to bring this year as well.
Yeah. Nate, Rick, Gillespie, like
all of them.
Yes. You are allowed to enjoy things, people. And this is something to enjoy.
Appreciate you guys listening. We finally got the basketball pod up. We'll come back next week. Like I said, probably be more around the SEC centric with some coaching changes and stuff. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll go around the NCAA over the next week, since Tennessee's playing a lighter opponent. We finally got the baseball talk and the basketball talk. So please keep listening, even if the season hasn't gone on. Please subscribe. We appreciate you guys. YouTube, Amazon, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're on. So please subscribe, and appreciate you guys sticking with us, and go Vols.